The Athletic floats out that the Chicago Bulls could be higher on Cedric Coward than initially expected. And why are the Chicago Bulls circling Cedric Coward if the rumors are to be true? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, an article points out that the Chicago Bulls could flip Patrick Williams for Jerami Grant in a trade that's going to net the Chicago Bulls more draft capital while taking back more salary. We're going to talk about all those things and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off talking about this. So the Athletic has pointed out that the Chicago Bulls could very well be circling Cedric Coward in the draft. Now, we're less than a week away from the draft. We're only 5 days away from the NBA draft, and there is going to be a lot of kind of things around teams and who teams could be interested in that may not end up turning into anything. I want to be clear there, right? There's a huge possibility of that, around this area of the draft. Do not be surprised if you see that. But I do want to get into this article and what they say here when it comes down to it, right? They say this. Per The Athletic, one coach whose teams face Coward said this: "First thing I'm told my staff, guys, this guy will be an NBA player. His measurables, the way that he moves, were so smooth and fluid. I just loved him. I had so much of a man crush on his game. He got a lot of layups, posting people up with this size and the turnaround jumper. He's got that kind of natural old school MJ fade to his game." MJ fade? He did say this. One of the benefits of Cedric Coward being in that system, talking about the Bulls system, though, is that he would know how to fit into a team. That's probably one of the things that people value about him. He's a freak in terms of his measurables, and he just fits in with good players. So here's the thing, right? Hearing that the Bulls very well could be interested in Cedric Coward, it's not something that we're too foreign on, right? I think, Carter Bryant, that type of player, the fact that the Bulls brought him in for a workout recently kind of fit in with a lot of people of the player type that people expect of the Chicago Bulls to really kind of value in this draft, right? I think that's something. Drake Powell, another one. Those are kind of players that are in the same mode of the type of players that AK and Eversley have drafted before. Very, young, really upside players, athletic, right? To be out on that wing, defensive upside out the wazoo. And Cedric Coward brings a lot of defensive upside and shooting upside as well. I think Cedric Coward's ability to catch and shoot, those type of things, could be very good in the Bulls' offense, and the fit with Josh Giddey could be seamless, right? And the Bulls very well could be looking at Cedric Coward as the best of both worlds. He could be a player that could theoretically fit in for Coby White if they do decide to move on from Coby White, and now he's playing shooting guard. He brings more legit size, more defensive ability. Of course, not the overall scoring ability of a Coby White, but maybe a better catch and shoot player when it's all said and done, things like that. I think that could make some sense in those areas if you're looking at Cedric Coward and projecting him to be that type of player. But, as I've said before, the Carter Bryant thing is something that kind of fits in more if you're trying to keep things the same. But Cedric Coward could offer you a player that can do either. If you keep Coby White, he can play the three next to Modest Buzelis, and I think that Cedric Coward could very well thrive in that role. Now, people are going to say, well, is this a bit of a reach for Cedric Coward? And it really depends on how you view him and how you're viewing how the board is going to fall. Cedric Coward was initially a player that, it was reported that a lot of teams were trying to stay quiet on him because they were hoping he was going to be there later in the first round and they could use a late round pick to get him. But with his workouts, things like that, he really stood out, and now he's looked at to be a lottery pick. Maybe right at the end of that lottery, which I guess the Bulls are kind of towards the end of that lottery as well, right? Or right outside the lottery. Currently, the Ringer has him projected to go 13th to the Atlanta Hawks, so that's one pick after the Chicago Bulls. And that, again, Cedric Coward is the type of player that fits the mold that the Bulls like to draft, right? But he's a little bit older, 22 years old. Now, he is a legitimate almost 6'6", with a 7-foot wingspan, a 7'2" wingspan. So the wingspan is ridiculous. But is that enough to forego not taking a player that's more of a center, right? More of a big, where the Chicago Bulls have the biggest need at right now? And like I've said many times before, it really depends on how the Bulls view their need. If they really believe that there's more likely scenario than not that Coby White is not going to be in a Bulls uniform this time next year, meaning by the start of the 26-27 season. The Bulls are the only ones internally that would know that. Us as fans, of course, we have our thoughts whether we want to keep Coby or move Coby or whatever it is. And that's really the Coby White part, I think, plays a larger role into what we do in this draft than many people believe, right? Now, make no mistake, the Bulls need a center regardless, and that is why it's still a safe bet to go after that position, and you can worry about other positions later down the road, right? But for the Bulls, the thing that they have to look at and say is that if they believe that there's a higher chance than not that Kobe's not going to be in a Bulls uniform, regardless of the reason, whether it's his choice to leave, their choice to trade him, not re-sign him, whatever it is, right? Then that's where you can open yourself up to more draft prospects, more positions, right? And that's a fair thing to make and to be said there. And I do think the Coby thing has an overall more lasting impact on what the Bulls do draft-wise than what many people believe. Now, I, for one, think that you need a center anyway. I think there are a lot of defensive bigs that have offensive upside in this draft that just makes sense for you. That's kind of my thought process there. But I understand it in the sense of if the Bulls look at, for example, Cedric Coward, Drake Powell, whoever, name your guy, as a can't-miss prospect on top of they don't believe that Coby White's coming back, then you open yourself up to that move, to try to make that move and you get things in here. And, when you hear things like the Bulls aren't necessarily looking or beholding to a certain position in the draft, they're more so beholden to a player that fits in with their scheme, their philosophies, and who they feel is the best player available that fits into a certain role, right? Or fits a certain way into the team. That's what smart front offices do. And that's what, if you're looking forward and your future forecasting things, that's what you should be doing as a franchise. The problem is Bulls fans aren't going to trust it, and it's going to be hard for Bulls fans to trust it because of the way that this front office has operated for so long. And I can't blame anybody for that, right? So, going into this last 5 days before the draft is really going to be interesting to see what the Bulls do. If they plan on moving Coby in this draft, which I still don't think is a certain thing. I know some people think it's more certain than not. We shall see. And the Bulls trading up or down. I was lucky to be on Just Another Year Chicago over there with Phil. Shout out to him for having me on. And I don't think that the Bulls trading up or back is going to be a thing that really happens in this draft. I think some things that people need to realize is that they're almost universally past number 9 or number 10. Most teams view these players with all similar ceilings, and therefore, not to say that you can't trade back, but you're not really going to gain a lot by trading back because teams look at the players' ceilings all about the same. Now, if somebody hits a drastic fall, which I doubt Ace Bailey falls that low, then you may see a trade up or something like that. But otherwise, I don't really see that a trade up being hugely valuable. Now, I do think the Bulls can trade back in to the first round. I think that is much more likely than trading up or down, and that would come via Vooch, Coby White, P. Will, one of those players. And if the Bulls can finagle getting Lonzo Ball, can finagle getting a first that's later in this draft to get that done. And that's, I think, the bigger option here for the Bulls, especially with how many teams have multiple first-round picks in this draft that don't really need them. And I think that's the thing that you're going to have to look at, and the Bulls can take advantage there, and maybe that's where they try to pick up a guard later or center later, depending on what they go, if they go wing earlier in the draft. So we'll see how those things all shake out for the Bulls, man. Overall, I'll just think this, like, the Bulls are open for business. And by that I mean that it may not be the position we all think that they should take. As many as us have draft boards and things like that, this could very well come down to the Chicago Bulls going a position that none of us really expect. And if that happens, man, that is going to be something that's going to suck. I'm going to tell y'all right now, that is going to, it's going to suck for some people because we may not see the vision initially, but with free agency starting only a week later after the draft, listen, we're going to get the answer to these questions sooner rather than later. Like, I think people forget how condensed the offseason is now. We got the draft next week. Free agency opens up only a few days after that. And then we're going to start seeing all the willing and dealing, all the moves and minutia of all the moves that could be possible there for the team. So we'll see. On Saturday, we'll do another mock draft roundup as a lot of the mocks have updated. And we'll take a look at what mocks have the Bulls going, what place or what player and we'll take a look at that. But let me know your thoughts down below. Cedric Coward, being there that The Athletic has mentioned him as somebody that the Bulls may be higher on than initially thought. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But now I want to get into an interesting rumor. Now, this is one that I did not expect to hear. This comes from a writer named Austin McGee, who writes that the Bulls dumping Patrick Williams' salary could be easier than thought, but if the Bulls are willing to take a risk. And the risk that he has the Chicago Bulls taking in that case is taking on the bad salary of Jerami Grant, which is funny enough, because I remember in the near the deadline of 2022, that a lot of Bulls fans wanted the Bulls to trade Patrick Williams for Jerami Grant because they thought that Jerami Grant was going to be this amazing player that could put the Bulls over the top. Keep in mind, I think this was before, Lonzo went down and things like that. But so he has this going in here as the deal shaking out that the Chicago Bulls send Lonzo Ball and Patrick Williams to the Portland Trail Blazers to get back Jerami Grant. But the benefit in this, because you're taking back a bad salary in Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant has 3 years left on his contract, all over $30 million, right? So even though his contract is shorter than P. Will's, you're taking back bigger money for 1 year shorter than P. Will has 4 years left remaining on his contract. Jerami Grant has 3 years remaining. You're getting that $33 million contract that Jerami Grant has. But again, so it's $32 million next year, $34 million the year after that, and $36 million in the final year of that deal. That's a player option. So you're getting the chances of that deal. But in this, he has the Portland Trail Blazers guaranteeing the first round pick for the Chicago Bulls in 2026 or 2027, meaning that because the Bulls own protections on Portland's pick, right, and it's playoff protected, basically top 14 protected, meaning that the Blazers have to make the playoffs to be able to get that pick. So if the Blazers are then saying, well, since you're taking on this dead money, we're just going to guarantee you the pick in 2026, meaning that's your pick in 2026. Now, that's a deep draft, so I do like the fact that Andrew in this is mentioning the fact that, okay, they may not want to do that. Maybe they're guaranteeing the 2027 pick, right? And you're saying that, okay, so no longer it's a if you get the pick. You're going to get it in 2026. Let's just say 2026 for this case. You're going to get an additional first-round pick in 2026. Would you take that to dump off Patrick Williams' salary? And that's an interesting point, right? Now, I talk a lot about Bulls fans who have this kind of mindset that, oh, let's not trade any good players. Let's only trade bad players and get all this back. If you do that, you usually have to take on bad salary. Now, typically, if you want value back, you're going to have to trade a player that actually has value, right? Now, what is the value for the Blazers there? I do think that the Blazers wild team, they've already said that they are gunning for the playoffs next year. This isn't a team that's trying to come in and tank next season. So if Portland's getting Lonzo Ball's contract, which is a player that can help them now, and I think he can fit a multitude of roles there, and they're taking on Patrick Williams, who they may very well look at and say, all right, well, we have some time here. We can give Patrick Williams some minutes here, and we'll see what he can end up turning into. If not, okay, it's bad salary, but it's not as much as we're playing Jerami Grant, so there may be a risk there. And then the Bulls are taking on the $102 million left on Jerami Grant's contract to get an additional first-round pick. That's the question here. And that's something that I do think in this scenario could make some sense for the Chicago Bulls. I don't think that Patrick Williams is completely untradeable. But I do think that if you trade Patrick Williams, you're going to have to take something bad back. Very bad back. But then depending on the severity of that contract or that player that you're taking back and how much of a negative that is where you can get an additional first-round pick, right? So I love that this is floated out here and talked about. But I'll say this. I don't believe that the Bulls would do this because I still believe that they still think that they can make their big swing in 2026. I think that may be where they're going to try to make their swing at. Having Jerami Grant on $33 million, keep in mind that would be it's like $18 million more than what P. Will is going to make in the summer of 2026. So that's taking off a lot of your money there. So unless you plan on dumping off a Coby White or something like that and you don't have his contract extension a part of that, that's going to be something that really does kind of limit what your flexibility in the summer of 26. But then again, a lot of the players that were slated to be free agents in summer of 26 seem like they may be signing contract extensions this year. So maybe the Bulls look at it as, all right, we're not going to be able to be flexible. Our target may not be available in the summer of 26. So now we're going to have to more so pivot towards giving out, taking on bad money to get another draft pick in what's slated to be a very deep draft. That's the chances of the things that you have here. I don't think that I wouldn't want to see it. I don't know if this really benefits the Bulls a whole lot. Like, yeah, getting the additional first round pick is great. And Portland, if they guarantee the pick, I don't think that they're a team that's still going to make the playoffs in the West. So you're still probably then getting a lottery pick, low lottery. We'll see where it ends up shaking out. So you're taking on that risk. And maybe that is valuable for the Chicago Bulls, especially seeing how the draft of 26 ends up shaping out. But let me know what you guys think on that. Would you be willing to take on Jerami Grant's contract? Keep in mind, and I know people are going to say, well, Jerami Grant is a better player than Patrick Williams when he's on the court. Yeah, but Jerami Grant played 12 more games than Lonzo Ball last year. So it's not like Jerami Grant really, since signing his contract extension, has not been a very healthy player at all. So you're not only just taking back a bad salary, you're also taking back another injury risk for a player that just has not been able to stay healthy over the course of the last 5, almost 6 years in the NBA. Jerami Grant has just not been able to stay healthy. And that's something that you have to look at the risk versus reward when it comes to that as well. 47 games played last year, 54 games the year before that, 63 the year before that, 47 the year before that, 54 the year before that. Matter of fact, since his season in Denver, which I think many people do look at as one of the best seasons that he's had, even though statistically it wasn't a great season, he played 71 games. Before that, he was like 70, 78, 80, 81. He played majority of the games. That season in Denver, he played 71. It's been downhill since then. He's played only one season of over 60 games since then, and that was his first year in Portland. So it's been a very, last 5 or 6 years, it's been tough as far as Jerami Grant even getting on the basketball court. So you got to ask yourself, is that worth the first round pick? And for many people, they're going to say yes. And I can't blame you there because you're taking on risks. You're getting more assets back. You're stacking the deck for yourself to be able to get more bites at the apple to get young talent. And sometimes you got to take on a bad salary to get that done. This would be one of the more risky moves that the Bulls do take. And, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But I would say this, if you do that deal, you better well get that first. I would say that you almost need to get a first round pick, one of those picks unprotected, and a chance at another one because that's $103 million. Whereas, yeah, the Portland Trailblazers are taking another bad contract back in Patrick Williams, but Patrick Williams is a lot younger than Jerami Grant, right? Jerami Grant is 31 years old. Patrick Williams, there's still more time, a chance for him to turn things around, maybe with a different, in a different system or with a change of scenery. So I don't know. Like I said, this deal is a risky one. It is a rumor, so don't take it with. It's not written as something that is like far in advance talk. So don't take it that way. This is right now rumored that this could be that the phone has rang on this move. The question is, was it the Bulls calling? Was it the Portland Trailblazers calling? And how far did those talks go? Did they go far, or was it immediately a hang up and no, we good and we keeping it pushing? That's really what it's coming down to in this situation. And I guess we'll see how it's going to shake out, y'all. But you guys can let me know how you feel, how you think. Which way do you think this is going? All down below. Last thing to go before we get out of here, though, right? I do want to talk about this. By the way, I am not announcing. I will be dropping an additional episode today. We're going to be going over the 10 worst draft picks by the Chicago Bulls in the Bulls history. We're going to be talking about that. I think that'll be a fun video to get out there around draft time. But the Bulls have locked in AK and Eversley. The extension of Billy Donovan is all surely becoming before the start of the season. Billy Donovan is going to get extended too. We did get it announced from KC Johnson that the extension is going to the end of the 27-28 season. So basically you're giving them 3 more seasons, right? So we're going to have 3 more seasons of AK and Eversley and Billy Donovan more than likely. I see Billy Donovan's contract's probably going to go up throughout the same amount of time than AK and Eversley, right? So you're getting the Chicago Bulls' actual big 3. That's who ownership views as the big 3s. Mark Eversley, Arturas Karnisovas, and Billy Donovan locked in here. And while, make no mistake about it, I understand why a lot of Bulls fans are concerned, upset, and disheartened by this news. I say this, the fact that the extension is not longer, the fact that we always knew that AK was going to be here at least 10 years. When you look at the president of basketball operations and GM, we've had 3 of those in over 30 years. You're going to get at least a decade. I said that when it happened. When people were talking about fire Acme, I said they're going to be here at least 10 years. 10 to 12 years actually is probably how long they're going to be. I believe this deal is going to put them at the 10-year mark. That's going to happen. And it is what it is when it comes down to that. I view this, though, as the Bulls, this is their last shot. And I hope so. This is the hope part of it, right? is that you've now started another retooling of your roster. And while, Casey Johnson said that the Bulls feel confident that the first version of this roster was good, it got hurt by Lonzo Ball being there. It is what it is. He's going to say that. But in the retooling and reshaping of this new direction that you brought here, I do think that A.K. Eversley and Billy Donovan getting a chance to see this through is a scenario, right? I'm not going to say it's the best scenario, but it is. And I think that this is starting the ticking the clock, though. You start feeling it, right? You started feeling it towards the end of Krause. You started feeling it towards the end of Garpax. You start feeling where it gets to the point where, all right, this team has started, it's been down enough, and if it doesn't come back up very soon, you could see that the end is nigh, right? And I know that that's harder to see with a Bulls ownership group that seems fine beating me mediocre as long as the checks are clearing, and I understand that feeling, but I do think that these next 3 to 4 years are going to be the sink or swim years. This is going to be where it's told at if AK and Eversley deserve to keep their job. And I know going through another 3 years of what we've been through already, it sucks. The prospect of that sucks. It hurts. And it's not what we should be going through as Bulls fans. But I do think we're getting towards the end of this. And I think that either way, whether they build something that's successful with going more younger, building over time through the draft, or this ends up being AK and Eversley failed yet again, their bags are starting to get packed, they're out the door soon. Those things I think are coming sooner rather than later. But let's again, I think that the Bulls, in choosing a new play style, choosing a new path, choosing to actually go younger, this is what they should have done anyway. This is where they should have been. Now, I think a lot in how they hit off on the next 2 draft picks are going to be very important. And that's why I'm really excited about this draft coming up 5 days into the NBA draft. 5 days. Let's get to it. Let's get through it. And let's see what's going to happen here. But, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.